How do you feel after hours of scrolling through social media? Some may feel fine, but others will not. Every day we are constantly scrolling through social media, whether Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. No matter how a person feels after using social media, there will always be a negative or positive mark left on the person. Today I will be talking to you about the negative effects social media embeds on teens. Through my own experience with having social media, backing up my main points with credible evidence, I can provide factual information pertaining to this subject. Social media, through its negative effects, has caused an increase in addiction, social comparison, and overall health. First, I will inform you about the history of social media. Then, I will reveal the negative effects of social media has on teens. Finally, I will address and refute what supporters of this subject have said concerning the impact of social media on teens. The meaning of social media can be explained in many ways, along with what it can offer people who choose to use social media. Britannica Academics states, the term social media refers to technologies, platforms, and services that enable individuals to engage in communication from one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many. American media scholar Howard Reingold states, social media makes it possible for everyone in the network to be simultaneously producer, distributor, and consumer of content. Not to mention, the power of social media comes from its users. Reingold also mentions that social media allows us to coordinate activities between themselves, on scales and at speeds that were not previously possible. Additionally, social media has made a major impact in our world today, starting with how it started and how it will look in the future. Social media began on May 24, 1844, with a series of electric dots and dashes tapped out by a telegraph machine. The history of social networking explained that during the 1980s and 90s, communication services such as American Online and Prodigy introduced users to digital communication through email, bulletin-board messaging, and real-time online chatting. Moreover, social media did not begin to expand until the early 2000s with the rise of Web 2.0, which aimed to be user-focused, decentralized, and able to change over time as users modified them. According to the database, Issues and Controversies, the most popular and well-used social media apps today include Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, which allow people to create profiles about themselves and interact with other users socially, politically, and economically. According to Entrepreneur, consumers in the future will move toward services that will allow them to increase focus on protecting privacy, focus more on community building, personalize content at a granular level, and reduce the amount of virtual and conflict commonly found on public social media feeds. The future of social media is at the hands of its consumers. Its rapid change, advances in technology will eventually change and transform the social media platform. Now that you have a basic understanding about social media, let's observe and discuss the negative effects of social media on teens. By taking part in the social media world, teens can create an addiction, which in turn can cause problems for that individual. Scientists have found that social media overuse creates a stimulation pattern that is similar to other addictive behaviors. The brain responds to that social media the same way it responds to rewards, releasing dopamine signals which are catalyzed when a teen posts something and is met with likes and comments. According to Jeannie Rickey, writer for the California State University, states, some experts estimate that up to 10% of people or more in the U.S. have a social media addiction. Since social media is becoming more accessible to people, more people may develop addiction to social media. Furthermore, Crystal Raypole, writer and editor for Good Therapy, states, using social media can influence our brains in harmful ways. Teens can use social media excessively and in turn become too accustomed to scrolling through social media apps, which interferes with other areas of their life. Kristen Cherney, contributing author for Healthline.com, states, whenever a person logs into their social media, dopamine signals in our brain increase. Our brain tells us that by using more dopamine signals, we think of it as a reward and want to continue to take part in it. Once the signals wear off, we'll go back to social media for more. Through social media overuse, teens can start to develop addictive-like behaviors. Our brains become accustomed to scrolling through social media sites, which in turn results in the increase of dopamine signals in our brains. Teens think of these concurrent dopamine signals as rewards, and once they start to wear off, teens will right back to social media for more. Additionally, social media has made an impact in the world of social comparison between teens, which can result into cyberbullying. According to psychologists Jacqueline Nessie and Mitchell J. Princeton, a way in which social media affects teens' mental health is through social comparison. Teens spend most of their time observing their peers or role models on social media, which leads to social comparison. From this, it can damage self-confidence in oneself and even depression. Monica Anderson, Associate Director of the Pew Research Center, states, 43% of teenagers say they feel pressure to only post content on social media that makes them look good to others. Furthermore, the other 26% of teens say these sites make them feel worse about their own life. Moreover, Leah Schaefer, writer for the Harvard University's educational research site, Usable Knowledge, noted, one study found that 48% of teens who spend 5 hours per day on an electronic device have at least one suicide factor, compared to 33% of teens who spend only 2 hours a day on an electronic device. Social activist Monica Lewinsky cites a recent survey from the Cyberbullying Research Center. 34% of students in the United States between the ages of 12 and 17 have been cyberbullied. U.S. National estimates roughly 1 in 4 students. Social media can create a social comparison in oneself by looking through profiles to resemble that individual. By going deeper into social comparison, cyberbullying can take place, which can make the individual lose self-confidence, and it may lead to suicidal factors. Finally, social media can have a major impact on teens' mental and physical health. According to psychologists Jean M. Twenge and W. Keith Campbell, in a 2018 study, 14 to 17-year-olds who use social media 7 hours per day were more than twice as likely to have been diagnosed with depression, treated by mental health professionals, compared to teens who only spend an hour on social media. A study done by CNN noted, teenagers and social media participants who check Facebook or other networking sites between 50 and 100 times a day were 37% more distressed than those who only checked a few times a day. Those who checked more than 100 times a day were 47% more distressed on average. In addition, social media also negatively affects sleep because of the artificial blue light mirroring off the phone, which arouses neurons in our brain, making it hard for a person to produce melatonin, which is a sleep-inducing hormone. Physical activity also becomes lost when teens are constantly scrolling through social media for hours on end, which can result in their bodies becoming weak and tired. The many hours teens spent on social media can develop depression and stress-like factors, and health experts have noticed through their studies. The overall health of teens is important to take care of because if not, they can begin to develop mental and physical issues. In the light of social media having negative effects on teens, some sources believe otherwise. Although social media can cause negative effects on teens, defenders of social media argue that social media enhances a person's self-worth through the many valuable benefits provided by social media. Molly Fosco, contributor to the Huffington Post, stated, "The harshly judged practice of self-picture taking, while perhaps excessive and annoying at times, can actually be a really simple way to feel good about oneself. Although our selfies might be veiled in narcissism, self-obsession, or boastfulness, I think that for many it's a genuine attempt to boost self-esteem. Seeing a close-up picture of your own face and willingly showing it to thousands of people with just one click is a form of self-confidence that I don't think should be quickly dismissed." According to a study done by social media expert Emily Weinstein from Harvard Graduate School of Education, stated, "In self-expression mode, teens felt empowered and excited when they shared important aspects of their identities with others, and they even enjoyed looking back at their personal Instagram feeds to reflect on how they developed over time." However, social critics contend can lead to people to obsess about themselves and their self-image to the point where it can become harmful. Teen Vogue contributor Tiffany Perry wrote, "People tend to look deeper for self-worth, they contend, than achieving likes by posting selfies on social media. If you've just spent half an hour editing a photo by blurring out your eyes with one app, adding eyelashes with another, then changing the colors with a third, chances are you're giving too much merit on how others perceive you." According to a study done by social media expert Emily Weinstein from Harvard Graduate School of Education, stated, teens also worried about being judged by peers and express anxiety over not getting enough likes. While teens can use social media to express themselves, it is not always the right thing to do because it can become harmful. There are better ways for teens to find their self-worth other than just looking at their likes and comments. Teens who are constantly worried about how many likes or comments they receive can eventually become overwhelmed and develop anxiety. Additionally, advocates of social media claim that social media sites bring people closer together and eventually become friends. Writer Dave Perrock states, "It has never been easier to make friends than it is right now, mainly thanks to social networking sites. The rise of mobile phones helped change this, connecting people in a new way. But then, social networks sprang up and the whole idea of friendship changed once more and forever." Tahos Lagos of the University of Washington wrote in the Seattle Times, "Because we live in a world of constant anxiety and stress about our lives, our careers, the planet, and the fate of our families and friends, trusted sites like Facebook and Twitter are places to relieve that tension and allow us to live and express our humanity." Opponents of social media claim that sites are gradually making essential aspects of communication and social interaction decrease. New York Times commentator Bill Kelly argued, "The shortcomings of social media would not bother me awfully if I did not suspect that Facebook friendship and Twitter chatter are displacing real rapport and real conversation." Teens who rely on social media to relieve their stress, anxiety, or even to make new friends isn't always the right path to follow. There are people outside of social media that teens can turn to for comfort and to find new relationships. Teens can go out and explore on their own to find new relationships without the use of social media. If teens choose not to, the real conversations with others will become lost. Today I informed you about the history of social media, in particular when it started and how it will look in the future. Then I explained the negative effects social media embeds on teens. Finally, I countered opposing arguments on why social media has a positive impact on teens. Due to the negative effects of social media on teens, like an increase in addiction, social comparison, and overall health, teens should be cautious when using social media. So, remember the next time you use social media, think back to all of the negative effects it can have, and maybe you will look deeper into using social media in a different but safer way.
Good job, Kyleigh.